Welcome to the India Fintech Diaries, the only podcast focused exclusively on the Indian fintech market. I'm Elroy.
And I'm Hemant. In each episode, we dive into the latest trends, ideas, innovations, business models, and personalities that are shaping India's fintech landscape.
We also invite amazing guests who are innovators and industry players that are driving the change that is helping make financial services more modern, innovative, and inclusive in India. Come join us as we explore the changing landscape of fintech in India. Welcome back to India Fintech Diaries, the show where we discuss all things Indian fintech. After the last couple of episodes where we looked at investors and investing in fintech in India, we thought it's time to shake things up a little. What do we have in store for today, Hemant?
Well, Elroy, for today's episode, we will discuss the one area of fintech innovation which has gotten India the most attention. No prizes for guessing, UPI. And to discuss this, we are joined by a very special guest, someone who has been associated with the payment space in India for the better part of the last 2 decades, and more recently has been very closely associated with NPCI as UPI kept scaling new heights. It is my great pleasure to welcome Anup Nayar, CEO Domestic in Solutions Global Limited. Welcome to India Fintech Diaries, Anup.
Thank you, Iman. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Anup, thanks a ton for joining us today. You have had an exciting professional career working across the payment space in India. For the sake of our listeners, can you give us an overview of your background?
Oh, thanks, Hemant, and thanks, Elroy, for having me on your show. Well, yeah, had the privilege of working in the retail payment space for almost 2.5 decades, having worked with all the key stakeholders in the payment landscape, be it the bank, be it the domestic network, and be it the processing industry, and now working with ISG. Been a pretty evolved journey, and I'm fortunate that I've had the opportunity to work with all the key stakeholders in the ecosystem.
Anup, well, most of us have paid at some time or the other using UPI, right? Most of our listeners may not really understand what happens when you try to pay using UPI. It would be great if you could give us a quick high level view of what happens when you pay using UPI and how UPI works.
Yeah. So just before we start, just need to know, we need to know as to this entire UPI journey started in the year 2016, and this was started with a few clutch of banks. Before the entire product was launched,
Right.
it took almost a year for us at NPCI, starting with Dilip Asbe, to convince the bank in terms of how UPI kind of would really make the transactions at a consumer level extremely seamless. You need to understand that the kind of transaction journey UPI offers has never been witnessed within the entire global payments ecosystem. The way UPI works is the fact that you don't necessarily need to input any of your banking credentials, be it
Yeah.
your account number or in Indian context, even your IFSC codes or whatever. You just need to register yourself with the bank, and or what you get is a VPA, which is like your email ID. It's like Anup at a bank, and you are kind of registered and you're able to do a transactions. You can send money and also receive money using that VPA. So VPA becomes the virtual private address becomes your identifier from a transaction standpoint.
Anup, in the most recent UPI statistics for October, right? UPI did about 12 lakh crores, almost 145 billion dollars worth of transaction value, and close to 7 billion transactions. UPI
Correct.
certainly has come a long way from the days of demonetization. And if you look at the recent trends, it only seems to be going from strength to strength. You
Correct.
must have had a ringside view of this entire UPI story as it unfolded during a stint of at NPCI. Can you tell us a little more about that as well?
Sure. In fact, almost what 7.3 billion transactions in terms of volume,
Yeah,
and almost
in terms of volume. Yeah,
yeah, in terms of volume, and 12 trillion transactions in terms of value. It's humongous. So we started this entire journey of UPI in the year 2016, and there was a time in the around April or May of 2016 where the volumes were only around 48 crores, and
right.
from that to kind of leapfrog that we have seen in terms of volumes and value of UPI transactions, it's been a stupendous journey. And primarily, this journey has been driven by the faith the entire payments ecosystem has put on the product, be it the banks and be it the fintechs. For when I say faith, it means what it means is in terms of the fact that consumer has built the confidence around this product, and that comes in from the fact that there have been some super user journeys that have been crafted around this product, coupled with the fact that there are enough and more governance mechanism which gives that kind of confidence to the customer that his payment is safe, and there are enough and more mitigants to manage issues related to payment dropouts. And the third and the most important fact is the regulator themselves have a bird's eye view over this entire story, and they keep a very tight overview in terms of customer complaints. And there's a tight mechanism in which how the way banks and fintechs address customer complaints. And the entire story put together kind of builds the value proposition around this offering, and boost consumer confidence in terms of adopting this payment method.
Anup, you just mentioned that you also worked with banks and fintechs, right? And they've been kind of instrumental in the growth story of UPI. What were some of the challenges you faced while working with these two completely different, disparate players?
When you work with banks, yeah, and you have various sets of banks, you have the public sector banks, you have the private sector banks, and you have also the cooperative banks. As I speak to you, there are almost 300 plus partner banks with who are already registered on the UPI network with NPCI, and this cuts across private sector banks, public sector banks, cooperative banks, even multinational banks.
Right.
And getting each of this bank onboarded on the UPS system is a challenge by itself, because each of them brings its own set of requirements in terms of understanding the business model, and of course the when you want to get them live, the complexities in terms of getting them integrated in the overall UPS system. So first is in terms of trying to address the business model for them. This is the first time globally the banks have realized that Anup Nayar, who's not a customer of a bank, can
Yeah.
get his account listed, okay, with the app of that bank. So there's always this concern that, why would I want to be a part of the ecosystem? That, would I lose customers? Or, would I lose revenues and stuff like that? So that was a huge challenge. So banks got over it. Banks understood that, this is the platform which is not in any way going to disintermediate them in terms of
Right.
getting their accounts, in terms of they losing their accounts and stuff like that. So that took a long time, and then subsequently, getting them integrated in the overall UPS system. What it means is understanding their switching system, understanding their reconciliation system, and designing processes around that, handling the various technology teams, the operations teams of the banks, and getting them onboarded. That was another challenge. And post that, monitoring transactions, because look, for any transactions and for the entire ecosystem to be successful, and for consumers to adopt it, the transactions need to be seamless. Whilst the fintechs have taken upon the responsibility of providing excellent user interfaces, it's the bank's backend systems that need to really play out well, because what the consumer wants to see is his entire journey from a transaction on a transaction is seamless, and at the end of the day, he's able to address issues in terms of transaction dropouts. So the banks had to take care of transaction dropouts. The banks had to take care of their reconciliation processes, so that at the end of the day they're not out of funds, and they ensure that their entire systems are clean from an accounting standpoint. To be fair, NPCI invested a lot of their time in terms of working with these banks by giving them data inputs, getting them technology insights as to where transactions are getting dropped, what are the best practices in terms of reconciliation. There are enough and more workshops in this entire process of almost 3.5, 4 years. And what you see today is a fusion of all those efforts. And the sec and the other player in the ecosystem were the fintechs. So fintechs, by their very nature, okay, are very agile. They know the customer journeys, and they were kind of very adept in terms of bringing them to the play and work with the banks. So once both these key constituents in the ecosystem were able to work the business model around the story, today what we see is the end result, where fintechs and banks leverage each other's strengths, and today we see the entire ecosystem benefiting out of the entire collaborative approach.
Anup, I remember reading the UPI specification back in 2016 and thinking to myself that this is pretty much going to completely change the game and
Mhm.
would probably maybe even end up killing wallets. And UPI really has been truly revolutionary. Even I couldn't imagine in my wildest dreams that this is the level of success it would have. But Anup, if you had to summarize 3 to 5 things that led UPI to be the success it is today, what would they be?
The first thing is the kind of user journeys that were created for the consumer. That's point number one.
Yep.
Point number two, the governance. When I'm saying what I mean by governance is there's a very strong governance coming in from all the key players, which is the regulator, which is NPCI, in terms of monitoring transaction approvals, transaction
Okay.
dropouts, what it means in terms of managing customer complaints, and that itself give a huge boost in terms of consumer confidence. Okay, that okay today my transaction is secure, and I mean there are people who will take care, and the entire ecosystem will take care of issues with related to my transactions in case it goes bad. Third is in terms of the large focus in terms of security and scalability. To achieve the so when you talk about scalability to achieve the kind of volumes that we see today on UPI, it's insane. I mean, you're just kind of just kind of scaling volumes almost on a 40% on a month-on-month basis. I mean, to manage
Yep.
that kind of scale is something which you have to give credit to NPCI the way they manage the infrastructure to scale those volumes up. You don't see the kind of failures happening at a network level where because of the kind of volume surge, the network has kind of gone bust. No way. I mean, they have put all the right parameters and the right technology in place to ensure the kind of to manage this kind of volumes. Secondly, is in terms of security, there's been a huge focus from NPCI to manage issues related to security and transaction risk and managing fraud. Like with any online transactions, fraud is always a factor that one needs to consider. And to the credit of NPCI and to RBI, that's a huge focus area for both NPCI and RBI. They've been taking a lot of measures to mitigate this kind of risk.
Understood. Couldn't agree more, Anup. Anup, while the UPI's growth has been really stellar, UPI and NPC have never rested on their laurels and have been constantly innovating. Their latest has been credit cards on UPI. Anup, both you and InSolutions have been closely associated with the rollout. Can you share with us on what the journey of the rollout has been so far and how do you see this playing out in the near future?
So let's understand the use case behind this. The first is
Right.
we
Mhm.
7.99 crore, 7 crores and some odd number in terms of credit cards in the market. We also have in the current space we have almost 4 million merchants who accept these credit cards, and we juxtapose the same with the kind of acceptance platform that we have with on UPI, which is
Mhm.
almost 20 crore merchants. Yeah,
Right.
just
Yeah.
imagine if these kind of if credit cards gets this kind of a acceptance platform. I mean, to see the volumes that could scale up. And today, a large portion of these volumes is expected to come from tier two, tier three, and tier four locations. Okay,
Right.
so
Mhm.
that was largely the driving factor behind credit cards, and that kind of completes the overall journey of what payments can be used from a UPI standpoint. So start with debit cards. I mean, from a checking account using debit cards as the form factor, and now it's come to credit cards. Now the role that ISG is playing, and it has been playing a stellar role in this case, is the fact that we have the largest banks in the ecosystem with for whom we provide the range of reconciliation as what we call as trust services. We provide them the issuance platforms. We're providing acquiring platform. So
Mhm.
when NPCI decided that there are X number of banks that they need to be live with, and they chose a set of banks, and we were fortunate that those banks were also a part of our portfolio. So we worked very tightly with NPCI and with the banks, put in all our understanding of transaction journeys, because having worked in the ecosystem of payments ecosystem for 2 decades, we know how transaction while banks know how and fintechs know the front end journeys, we kind of mastered the art of the back end journeys.
Mhm.
From the time it hits the back end systems of the bank, be it the switch or be it the CBS. So we know how to take these transactions, how to ensure that it kind of it's in a fail safe manner, and also ensure that the reconciliation is robust at the end of the day. So we were interested in the work by two of the largest banks in the country. Please work with us, and
Mhm.
along with NPCI, and we kind of put all the user journeys in place at the back end, and also ensure that finally these transactions are seamlessly reconciled, and the banks and NPCI get the final output.
Understood. Understood. Anup, two other very interesting product launches from UPI are UPI Lite and UPI 123 Pay. Can you help us understand these two products as well, and what are the use cases for those?
So UPI Lite has its root because see today 50% of the transactions in the case of UPI are less than
Right.
200 rupees. Okay, and these transactions bring in a lot of load on the core banking systems of the bank, and of course, and core banking systems are extremely cost heavy, both in terms of capex and opex.
Hmm.
Um, so the reason, and there has been an ever increasing need from the banking ecosystem that they need to take away these transactions, and they do not necessarily need to hit the core banking system. So UPI Lite found its use case from there. So the way UPI Lite would work is that there will be a wallet that would be created on the SDK of the app, and that would be the wallet that would, of course, the money for all practical purposes will be sitting with the bank, and it
Hmm.
is that wallet that would be used for the purpose of these transactions below 200 rupees.
Got it. Got it. And next, moving on to the UPI 123 Pay.
So UPI is restricted to all smartphones, right?
Right.
Hmm.
So today, the total number of smartphones in the country are around what 600 million users today use smartphone. But there's also those customers who use feature phones, and which is a huge space, which is almost for 400 million users who are not able to use UPI services.
Right.
So UPI 123 Pay brings in that flexibility where consumers who are on feature phones can use the features of UPI and do these transactions. So it has got multiple options. You can do voice assisted, and you can do a callback feature and stuff like that. So yeah, so there are multiple options as far as UPI 123 P is concerned.
Anup, just coming back to UPI Lite for a second, right? So, if I understand you correctly, the way this would work is, let's say, for example, I wanted to use this UPI Lite wallet, right? So, I would move in, say, about say 1,000 rupees from my bank account into the UPI Lite wallet,
Correct.
and then whenever I would do transactions which are either small value or small ticket in nature or offline, these would hit my UPI Lite wallet only, and maybe at a predetermined frequency, either consolidated transactions or individual transactions would get reconciled with my bank statement. Is that kind of accurate in my understanding?
It is accurate. Yeah, that's the way it would work.
Perfect.
Hmm. Anup, ISG today processes over 17 billion plus transactions per year and is one of the most interesting TechFin players coming out of India. Anup, also talk to us a little about what ISG does and give us a quick overview of the firm and the products and the services it offers.
This is an entity which was established in 2004 by our founder Adelia Castellino, and we started as a company where we are providing transactions settlement services to a few banks. It's I mean it's just words kind of fail me when the kind of challenges that she must have faced during that time in terms of working with banks and trying to convince the banks that you know ISG should be the right solution for that. It just kind of amazes me. But the fact is, it is her determination, her vision. Finally today, from that one bank, today we have almost all the leading banks, be it the private sector banks, the public sector banks, on our network today, and we offer complete stack of digital payments, which includes the entire issuance range of products. It is the acquiring range of products and risk-based products, and we also have adjunct products around this entire stack, which which gives the kind of flexibility to customers, our customers, be it banks, be it fintechs, be it the government entities, in terms of managing the entire journey on digital payments in a very seamless fashion.
Anup, like you mentioned, right, ISC is also playing a very important role in the UPI journey. Talk to us a little more about some of the technical challenges that a high volume system like UPI poses and how you've been helping our customers address some of those challenges.
Yeah, when it comes to volumes, there are, as I mentioned to you, there are a couple
Yeah,
of parts to it. One is the technology part, and other is the reconciliation part, and of course, the surrounding risk associated with these transactions in terms of
right.
phishing and in terms of cyber security risk and stuff like that. Let me just restrict this conversation to to the technology elements and to the reconciliation elements.
Okay.
Uh, from a technology standpoint, obviously, it means that banks need to continuously size their infrastructure and keep on adding, evolving their technology stack both vertically and horizontally to meet those kind of volumes. And for banks, it is a continuous journey because these transactions are always going to grow. And now with UPI Lite and UPI 123 also on its way, these transactions are going to leapfrog. So that's from a technology standpoint. The other challenge, of course, is reconciliation. To meet the kind of volumes, technology can obviously plays a very critical role, but
Yeah.
reconciliation is the heart of any banking system. You cannot have transactions lying unreconciled, okay, in your books. And to address this kind, for example, just give you a quick sense. One of the largest public sector banks that we do business with does close to almost 22 to 25 million transactions a day. I mean, these are never heard of kind of volumes which these banks have seen in this entire journey of digital payments. To reconcile those volumes on a daily basis, it requires backend solutions which we provide, which can easily absorb these volumes and kind of reconcile with all the stakeholders, be it the bank switching systems, the
Right.
bank's PS, the networks, everybody else. And at the end of the day, find out those unreconciled transactions, post them. Just to cut the long story short, I mean it is a very comprehensive solution that the banks need to look at both from a technology architecture and and from a reconciliation standpoint. And today, we kind of at ISG kind of manage almost 35 to 40% of the volumes on reconciliation of UPI transactions in this country.
That's pretty amazing, Anup. Just the scale that you're able to handle. I'm also curious, what are some of the recent product launches you have done outside of the UPI space? If I go to your product portfolio, right, I understand you have a lot of products that look at other aspects as well, both on the acquiring and the issuing side.
So we launched UPI credit
Yeah,
for two of the largest banks in the country. That was as recent as 2 months back. We have other launches happening, and especially around around our issuance and our acquiring set of products. So I would not like to, because we are right now under NDA with this bank. So at this point in time, I would not be able to speak it out. But yeah, we have two critical launches happening with two of the largest. One is a private sector bank and other one is a public sector bank.
that's great to hear, Anup. Anup, also, if you had to look at maybe ball gaze a little ahead, right? What's your vision for ISG and what do you see as the way ahead from a roadmap perspective,
So our vision is to be in the heart of the digital payments ecosystem of the country.
right?
We will continue to innovate, and we will continue to offer services which will kind of continue to delight our customers, and that has been the hallmark of a success. That's the vision statement of Adelia. We For her, customer delight is supreme. So you will rarely find any customer, I mean, we go beyond the call of a duty more often than not in terms of trying to please the customer. And I think that has helped us in good stead, that has helped us gain the trust of our customers, and we'll continue to build on that. Innovation is a key requirement because with blockchain and other initiatives that are happening in the country, all our products need to be, especially the reconciliation suite of products, would be aligned around those technologies. We would work on the user journeys on all other online products, especially on the payment gateway offerings and stuff like that. And yeah, and we will continue to work on these elements.
Speaking of innovation, Anup, what do you think are the two or three key technologies or innovations that you see playing a big role in payments technology and how we pay in the future?
So for us, blockchain would be a critical aspect. Yeah, we're
Okay.
working on blockchain. We're working on building platforms which will get a better insights. And so for us to get a deep insight into those transactions, okay, and to add value to our customers is going to be extremely important. So for us, mining this data and using all tools and technologies which help us mine this data better and offer better insights on this data to the customers is going to be increasing play. And also things like CBDC and blockchain are critical
Yeah.
initiatives for us. Yeah,
It was great speaking with you today, Anup. In case any of our listeners wanted to reach out to you or ISG, what's the best way to do this?
yeah, we can do that. I'll send you an email ID, and yeah, we can connect the listeners can correct me on those numbers.
Perfect.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Anup, we'll include these details in our show notes. And thanks once again for coming on the show and spending time with us, Anup.
Thank you, Hemant, and thanks, Elroy, for having me. Thank you.
That's it from India FinTech Diaries for this week. Do log on to our website, indiafintechdiaries.com, for the exclusive content. We also cover fintech deep dives in our Substack newsletter, so do subscribe. Until next time, mask on and stay safe.